Hi, you all, and welcome to the Voices of Logistics Planet podcast, where we deep dive into the world of logistics, uncovering its many layers through the voices of industry professionals. And today, we are hosting a really fascinating guest who has a lot of hats, multiple hats on. So he's an investor, a board member, a consultant, and with deep involvement in warehouse technologies. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sven Schroeder, if I pronounce it correctly. Yeah.
Perfect,
Hi.
Thomas. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. So today we will talk with Sven about warehouse technologies and automation. So I think if you are involved in this part, so there will be a lot of great guidance here. Yeah.
I try to do my best. Yeah. Let's see which question you're coming up, and let's see how I can answer them. Yeah. But I've been around quite a while in this industry.
Good. So let's so Sven. So I think it's very good to start from you. So could you please walk into your journey, your story? Tell us briefly
Yeah.
what you are doing today and how you reached this point of where you are today.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah. I started actually not really in the logistics world. I studied HR management, and then after university, I decided I go on a world trip, and I ended up in Mexico. Stayed there for 2 years. I met my wife there, and so I said, "Oh yeah, cool. Let's stay in that place." And then I got hired by Siemens and became a supply chain manager for mobile phones back in the day when they had mobile phones. Yeah, the older ones still remember. And after that, I went a bit into conference business. So I organized the logistics for huge, large conferences across the world. And then I started, let's say, the real logistics thing when I started at Miebach Consulting. So worked 7 to 8 years at Miebach Consulting, one of the largest consultancy. And there I learned everything from network design, concept planning of warehouses, realization, and everything involved in that. And from there, I moved on to the 3PL world. So I worked for the French contract logistic giant ID Logistic. Back then, not that big, but nowadays, like I think I started, and we had 500 million euros, and now they're 2 point something billion. So they were growing or still growing crazily. And I was there 4.5 years and was building up the business in Germany from scratch. And they're also in the 3PL world. Usually you say, yeah, in the 3PL world, you don't have much technology, but we were one of the first who really implemented warehousing technology in there from a packaging solutions, conveyor solutions, and all these different stuff. And after that, I went into logistic real estate. So then the buildings came to it. Yeah, first I was planning the buildings as a consultant, then I was running the buildings as a 3PL, and then I was checking where the best location for buildings and how you finance that, how you build it. When I was the head of in JLL, head of industrial for JLL, and was working with the large companies changing their networks and running a global corporation with my former company Miebach, and that was I did that for 4.5 years again. And then I met a guy, Wolfgang Lehmacher, who was the head of the World Economic Forum for Supply Chain. And I met him, I think, in 2020 when I did a Clubhouse, a similar show like you now. So every week I had my supply chain talk, and Wolfgang said, "Hey, you should live a more portfolio style, so different things." And that I took, yeah, for me, and I said, "Well, I want to do different stuff." And that's how I ended now. I work as a board member, a consultant, sometimes helping in business development, investor also in startups and scale ups. And there I work now for Anchor Group, Sherpa, and ACI Tool, and many of those ones. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. Quite different lifestyle now than before in the corporate world, but it is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So your story, familiarizes with, Phil Knight, the one who founded, Nike. So the the guy also took a long vacation, if I remember correctly, in Mexico, and then thought of building shoes, manufacture shoe selling company. So
Yeah, I
good.
can
So
really recommend Mexico as a place to visit. Yeah, it's a very nice country. Yeah.
nice. So okay, so now you are in tech, yeah.
Yeah.
So and in particular in warehouse tech, if I understand
Yeah.
correctly. So what do you think? What are the biggest challenges there right now? What technologies could solve for warehousing
Well,
companies?
you're facing quite a lot of challenges in the warehousing industry at the moment. Yeah. So in many parts of Europe, you have a lack of labor. The costs for labor are increasing constantly. You have AI coming in. How are you going to use it? And that is, and you always want to be more efficient. If you work in logistics, it's all about efficiency. You always try to make the process a little bit better, a little bit faster. If it's manual or automatic, doesn't matter. But you try always to do that. Yeah. Even you transfer it into your personal life, that when you go somewhere in the kitchen, you bring something in the kitchen, you want to take something back. You want to always do that logistics thing, yeah. And for people who work in that field, it's always crazy when they go in a restaurant and they see waiters going with a beer somewhere and not taking anything back because you're triggered by this logistics thing. And in automation, I really see there's a huge wave coming of different technologies, yeah. Um, so far it's more or less solved that you have a huge storage system that are automated for bins or for pallets. The area when it's goods in and goods out, that is still, and the picking area is still where a lot of labor is running around. And I really hope for the breakthrough in the unloading and loading of the trucks, yeah, and everything what's coming behind it. Yeah, now you have robots like we do at Sherpa Mobile Robotics, where they're transporting pallets and bins, and you don't need people. And for a rule of thumb, usually you could do when you work a two-shift model, and you have to transport constantly pallets from A to B on a distance that's longer than 60, 70 meters. Like you will quickly have an ROI for robots. Yeah, even without a shortage of labor, you're going to have that pretty soon. And there are many more things like the when you talk about the goods in, like the inspection through camera vision, that is coming more and more. Camera vision is coming more and more, and the picking technology there, the wristbands that you have for example, from Nimstar and things like that, where it helps easier like, to do the picking. Yeah, and a lot of things like that. And the conveyor technology is developing further. Everyone who's going to Logimat is just overwhelmed with technology every March, in Stuttgart. So that's a great field to play. And there, like that, we can solve a bit the challenges we face in the warehousing industry with the lack of labor and yeah, and the costs increase.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of great technologies, but which of them do you think they are game changers? No, because with technology, there's a thing, some start really fast and burn out, and then you see no ROI, and then you see a quick drop in consumers using such those technologies. Do you see the same things in warehousing? Are there some technologies that are promising, and or
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, there are quite a few promising ones. One of them is, for example, from the company called Cellumation. It's a sortation technology that where you can do the sortation on a much smaller space than with a
okay?
long conveyor system. That is one which I believe will be implemented in many warehouses and will be copied. Yeah, that is really something to look at. Then the robots are there to stay. They will improve more and more. You will transport your pallets and your bins and whatever you want to have with robots in the future. That is for sure something. And the unloading. Now there are the first attempts from Boston Dynamics and together with Kalyan to unload the containers not manually anymore. That is something what I was been waiting for the last 20 years, because this is really, everyone who did that once in his lifetime knows that is not good for your back. If you unload a container and put it on pallets and move it somewhere, So really
Yeah,
looking forward.
I
Yeah,
saw, I think many saw the video when Chinese guys just loading with the hands, fully, the
yeah.
container and loading. It's crazy.
This is really crazy, and that is hopefully it's just a beginning. But if that is technology is proven, it will help a lot. Yeah, and there you need the robotics for it. And finally, I think we're a step further that this is becoming reality, and in the next years, hopefully, be more implemented in many more warehouses. Yeah. And with the camera vision, that is something we're still at the beginning, but to recognize where your parcels are, how they move, that you don't have to scan all the time because you knew by the camera where it's going to be. That is something also for the quality. What did you put into the parcels to document it? When you open them in the returns, what have you seen? This is something that is also really changing. And then the technology is learning, so it will tell you which size of packaging you should use, and so that's also quite promising. Yeah, I think those are the three main ones. One is really that the robots is coming, and it's going to be there. Container unloading with a robotic whatever solution, robotics solution, and then we need to be more flexible in the sortation process. Yeah, not in these days when you have tariffs and whatever, you don't know, yeah, like how your volumes in your warehouse is going up and down. You have to have flexible solutions, yeah, and not stick a conveyor system miles and miles of that. I mean, of course, in the big warehouses, you're gonna have those huge solutions, but it is really how to have it more flexible. Yeah. So I believe those three will be quite promising. Yeah. And of course, the goods to man, when you go to the Logimat, you don't even know where to look because there's so many goods to man solutions from all the different providers. Not only the AutoStore, Exotec, Gepard, and whatever systems. Yeah, everyone has one, and it's really tricky to figure out which is the right one for you because they're kind of similar, and so many of them, and then you have the Chinese players there. So it's a huge market with a lot of players, and there will be consolidation for sure.
Okay, so we'll come back to this later, know how to choose
Yeah.
and mistakes. But what do you think? At what stage of growth should warehouse start to think about automation? I know that of course there are many players, smaller players that have small warehouses, and does this pay off already from a smaller size, or there's some good thumb of rule how to do this properly from which stage?
Well, I think to be efficient, you have to start. Of course, not if you have 10 pallets in there, but if you have a certain size of, I don't know, 500 pallets or 1,000 pallets or something like that, you should always consider how can I automate these processes. And there's so many videos out there about whatever technology, and little ones that help you to improve the process, document less, user apps for registering the pallets, or in the communication with your clients. Use the technology. Yeah, we have to get out of the stone age when we're sending fax through to someone. Yeah, um, really you can start when you're even a small company. Yeah, and always be interested in something new. Yeah, there are solutions for small and bigger companies. Yeah, it doesn't have to be always the most fancy one, but the little ones help you as well, and they bring you an ROI quite quick.
Okay, good. So and so you said that there are a lot of to choose from, yeah?
Yeah,
And when you choose a technology for warehouses, doesn't matter is it for the structure or the other technologies, so you stay with them for a long time and you will most likely not change them, because they are quite expensive, yeah. So
yeah.
what do you see as biggest mistakes, when choosing, I don't know, a warehouse solution, other solutions, so robots, RMMs, all other things?
Yeah, one of the the biggest mistakes is when you want to do one huge step. So you come from a completely manual warehouse where you handle papers and everything, and then you want to go to a fully automated one without having anyone who understands technology. That I think that's a concept for failure, because first of all, the people don't know how to handle something like that. So you most probably have to change the whole team because they never worked with a technology like that.
And do you
Which
see a lot of such warehouses still, doing on papers?
There's still at some 3PLs, it's still you believe or you don't believe, but there's still a lot of warehouses where it's a lot of manual stuff there. Yeah, and
Okay.
if they decide, hey, we're gonna build a 10,000, 20,000 square meter warehouse with a fancy auto store, exotech, whatever solution, and the, the team was running it for 20 years or 30 years, never improved anything, and the WMS system is from back in the day. Then it gets really critical. What you constantly should do is like do certain proof of concept, test certain technology in the smaller one, and then gradually improve. Yeah, and when you come to a point that your team is really interested in, yeah, we can build something better. Yeah, and then go for the invest. Yeah, and then speak to the different suppliers that are there. If you don't have a clue about the technology, I can only recommend go every 2 years or something like that to one of the bigger fairs. I mentioned the Logimat, or wherever in your country there are fairs for logistics technologies, and have a look. Yeah, you get overwhelmed what is there, but at least you have an idea of what is out there. And if you cannot handle it, then get someone who can give you an advice. Use a person like that and go with the person together on this fair, and then discuss what is the advantage of this, what is the advantage of that. Talk to the different providers, have do some site visits. In logistics, we are a huge community, and usually if you ask someone, hey, could I visit your warehouse, I heard you have the whatever technology, if it's not your closest competitor, then usually we'll say, yeah, come by and have a look at it, uh, and do that. Yeah, listen to podcasts like yours, where you can hear the latest about different tech, and yeah, get informed before you sign something. Yeah, inform yourself, and that's a constant process. Yeah, you always should learn some new stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
it's
a little piece
so
of advice. Yeah,
so those good points. If you have papers, invest into to collect data. So invest
yeah,
WMSs. Then look. Then when you analyze those data, you can see where are your problems. Yeah, and then look for other solutions. Yeah. So
yeah.
I just thought about questions. You mentioned that there are some European providers and Chinese providers. Yeah. So do you know? So does do Chinese providers enter our market really harsh, really hard, aggressive, or it's still a sweet spot for European providers?
No, I mean the quality of the Chinese is pretty good. Yeah, like they
Hmm.
have new stuff, and um, they're learning also how the market is working, and sometimes they're going too quick, because they every year you go to Logima, they have a new update of the last one, and
Okay.
so and you're like, okay, where's the other one? Oh yeah, we're on version 3 now or whatever. And so they change really quick. So uh, it's quite tricky in this industry, which uh, where the investment circles are longer. And you saw one technology, and then now they changed it a bit again, and you're like, okay, explain it me again. What is new now in this one? Yeah.
And I knew
Um,
I knew I want this new one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, then I get the new one. But what is it better? Yeah, they're doing a good job. Yeah, they're coming like high solution, high robotics. They, for example, they have some cool and fancy stuff, and some others. Yeah, so it's really interesting to look at it. Check also their support system. Yeah, how they're gonna build it up. Who's gonna be their integrator? Do they do it on their own or not? How is it functioning with your WMS system, or do they? What's the interface to their system? That those things you need to check, and what's happening if something breaks. Yeah, where to go? How is their maintenance system? These kind of things, these questions you have to ask. Yeah, but for sure they are on the market, and they're not selling cheap stuff that is yeah, not good. Yeah, they're actually a good competitor, and which also makes the whole industry more dynamic. All the other Europeans, they coming up with new solution, interesting solutions, and the competition is quite tough. But I mean, we don't have to sit there and be worried about that the Chinese taking over the whole market. No, it's still the European tech is still the leading technology in the logistics world, but there's a strong competitor now. I mean, it's a billion people over there. They're coming up with great products, yeah, and they have huge factories and warehouses over there for e-commerce players that using that technology. So it's proven. Yeah, when you go to China or somewhere there, these warehouses are high tech warehouses quite often. Yeah, so they have their references. Of course, they have to live with it to do the same thing here in Europe and build up their teams and everything. But yeah, they're not a bad they're not bad companies. Yeah,
Not a bad choice, yeah.
not a bad choice. Yeah, I mean you always have to be careful what you choose, of course. Yeah, um, but it's always interesting to see with what thing they're coming up now. Yeah, and if they're copying whatever stuff, then you have to figure out what is the better thing. Yeah, but at least if they are conform with the CE label and things like that, then yeah, it's a valid option. Yeah.
Good. So if someone, listening to us and are thinking about, investing into, different kinds of AI technologies, of course, how fast ROI can someone expect, from technologies? I understand, different technologies have different ROIs, but
Yeah.
let's say maybe robotics, so,
Well, if
uh,
like the for me the no brainer is usually when you talk about robotics, if you have a two shift or three shift model running the whole day transporting pallets for 50, 60, 80 meters constantly back and forth, you will have an RI, I guess, in a year or 1.5 latest. Yeah.
okay.
If the use case is not too complex, yeah, if it's just transporting pallet from A to B, that's going to be quite quick. Yeah. So and that's also quite easy to calculate then. Yeah, what is the real one? Yeah, of course it all depends on your labor cost. That's why it's different from country to country. But as a rule of thumb, you can say the pallet robots, I would say a year and a half, if you have these 2 3 shift models uh, working at the moment. Yeah, and and then
Oh,
for picking solutions,
okay. So it's
there,
it's it's quite fast, yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
quite
quite
fast.
fast.
Yeah.
And this your answer bumps me into another question, So how does automation impact warehouse employees? Is it about replacement or general empowerment? Because I know that with other technologies doesn't matter, in logistics. Is it order management? Is it some kinds of other automations, of paper processes and so on and so forth? You usually get a huge pushback from the employees because they are afraid of losing their jobs. What's happening in this field, with robots? Yeah.
Well, that all depends who you ask. Yeah. There are, of course, certain people who will say, "Oh yeah, this will cut down our labor force and these kind of things." But when you speak then with the people and say, "Hey, this is a task. This is a very repetitive task," or the worst is probably the one for the unloading of the containers. Everyone will tell you that the sickness rate of the guys who are unloading the containers is the highest because it really hurts your back. Yeah, um, and therefore most of the unions and everyone else will say in certain fields it is really a help to automate. Yeah, or you use technology like a exoskeleton to help carrying heavier stuff or not hurting your back. These kinds of stuff, they're also helping the employees. Yeah, and
Mm.
the labor force will change over the years. People will work together with the robots. They will program what their robots should do next. Yeah, the level of IT skills has to improve of the workforce, and therefore I really believe, and there's always a shortage because when you have a when you go in a warehouse and you ask them what's your fluctuation of people, it's usually quite high,
Okay,
and
yeah.
that everyone is getting sick of it because the fluctuation is high. So everyone has to explain. The older guys always have to explain to the new ones something new, and they were like, "Oh goodness, yeah, I have to do this every 4 weeks, yeah, because someone else is coming." So, and a robot once it's running, it's running, yeah, or an automated system once it's running, it's running. Yeah, you have to maintain it, but it's not running away. Yeah, and that's why I believe, yeah, people will look more and more in it. Yeah,
Yeah, good, some good points, but I'm looking at, for example, let's look, you mentioned about the container unloading, yeah,
yeah,
so it's a big topic, and let's, if you look at USA, the USA labor unions, and all of them are, just ignoring all of the port automations because they're thinking that, the workforce will just be out of work, yeah, so it's there are still some concerns, yeah, in this
of
field.
course. Yeah, of course, but you always had the concerns. You had the concern about when the automotive car, when the cars came, yeah, and you didn't need the horses anymore. When the computer came and you're not writing or typing everything. This is the technology changes, and it's going to shift. It's going to come sooner or later, yeah. And you have to adapt it. You have to have your workforce adapted to learn to be better, yeah. And when you have a competitive warehouse, you have a competitive advantage.
Yeah, good. So, Sven, we bumped into our, I think our last question, so I think let's end it with an advice. You already shared some, of course, all those big companies, they will find solutions, but, I always ask what to do for those smaller warehouses. What, quick, tips for them to improve their operations without spending big coin there.
Yeah. Well, one thing everyone can do is work on their analytics. Yeah. Really understand what is the material flow in my warehouse, what is going to be picked and when. Have a good WMS system that helps you doing that stuff. Um, use apps, program something, or get something off the shelf for your quality inspection, interaction with your clients. Those are small little things. Yeah, automate the processes when you receive an email, an order, or something like that, and how you transfer it into the system. That can be all automated. And in the warehouses, those are small picking solutions that are easy with a usually you have a mobile device in your hand to scan or something like that. Why don't you use a glove where you can just press the button and then you have the hands free? Yeah, those things. Th- those are not big invests. Yeah, they cost a few thousand euros and will help you dramatically to improve. the productivity of your people. These little things you should start with, yeah. Or the ACI guys with their camera. That doesn't cost much to inspect your palettes and things like that. And if they want to have an advice, they should just text me, and I will ask the question. And I will send them one or two little startups, yeah, and also work together with some startups that come up with new ideas. They always need someone to do a proof of concept, yeah. And if you're interested in that, it's a cool thing to work with these companies, yeah, and to improve their work and your work, and it's not so expensive.
Nice. So now I think all those who are thinking of investing or are thinking of creating technologies, they can just get in touch with Sven and he will help you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Good. So Sven, time flies. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your journey, insights, advice with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Nice. So I think we'll meet somewhere else, in the future. And all
For
of
sure.
and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Voices of Logistics Planet podcast. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share, this video if you found this insightful. So thank you and see you all. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Thomas.